Hi, and welcome back to episode 9 of the Leading Adam podcast. Today, we are going to talk about retention and how that connects to admissions and the human experience within the organization. Stay tuned.
The Leading Adam podcast is hosted by me, Adam Binkerd. I've spent the last 10 years researching how a healthy human experience is the key to innovation in student retention and education. And now I'm taking to the mic to share what I've learned. Hear how I've defied the odds and transformed from a landscaper to a national expert in student success in less than 10 years. Not an educator? That's okay. Stay tuned for entertaining stories and practical takeaways about leading self, leading leaders, and leading culture. The Leading Adam podcast is co-hosted by Erika Crabtree, produced by Chris Spangle, and sponsored by 240 Solutions. Connect with us at 240solutions.com, and I hope you'll stay tuned because together we can change the world.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so good.
Good. Are you sore? Because I know you and I both did a lot of home projects this weekend.
Yeah, sore is not the word I would use.
Right.
No, I feel pretty good. It feels good to do manual labor. I think I talked a little bit about I love to process firewood.
Yes.
It's one of my things. Well, working with my hands is something I really enjoy. My body definitely pays a price. So,
Right.
What about you?
Yeah, I painted a lot this weekend. Renovated the stairway and painted the sides. That is not a project I will ever do again for the rest of my life. But it's looking pretty good. So
yeah, painting
pretty happy with
is
it.
the one thing I just hate.
Yeah.
It's crazy because once I get set up, I'm good. I can fall into a rhythm. You kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
But the trying to get motivated to set up,
It's all that prep work.
oh man,
Can kill
it takes
you.
forever.
Right.
Yeah, and I've gotten to the point in my life where at the end I just throw everything away.
Yeah.
And I'll buy it new again when I all the brushes and rollers.
Right.
So.
There's only so much washing I'm really ready to do when it's all over. But
Exactly.
yeah, well, good. We were productive.
Yes, we were productive individually, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation.
Same.
It's one of my favorites. We talk a little bit about retention and how it's connected and a lot. So today, I'm looking forward to today.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is, an area where you've worked quite a bit. Definitely from the admissions side. I have a different perspective on it, but yeah, just definitely, I think both of us see the importance of it, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Before we get there, because you brought up the admission side, that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to talking about.
Yeah, man, we just came through our fall terms. This is the highlight of the year.
You're probably more exhausted from that than painting.
Probably.
Yeah. I'm curious though. No mug. What's going on?
I know.
Are you okay?
I think so. I woke up really early today and I've had a lot of coffee. So I thought it would just be best if I cut myself off this morning.
Okay. Otherwise it'd be really jittery.
Ooh, yeah. No one needs to see that.
I was concerned. I thought maybe you had quit and we were going to experience a different Erika.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
So you're still on the juice.
I'm still on the juice.
Okay,
Yeah.
good
It's
to
the
know.
first part of my day.
Well, anyway, back to retention. I really am looking forward to this. And as we've outlined, from education, we've worked on opposing ends, as many see it, from admissions to the student support side and administration in my case. And I'm curious, like, as we get into this, you're actively working in admissions now. You just said you came through
Through the fall.
a huge enrollment push. I think we don't connect the admissions process and retention naturally. And so I'd love to start there and just ask you, as someone, you've been doing this for 8 or 9 years now, are they connected? Admissions, the enrollment process, and retention?
Are they connected? Oh boy, are they?
Okay.
And I think it even goes back further than that. But I mean, it's just such a joy to work with students at the front end, but they already, even at that point, they're asking questions that lead to that retention element. And I don't think you can have one without the other.
Yeah.
And really, when I think about it and I think of those conversations that we have with students, and the students are asking questions and, they're concerned about, certain things along the journey, I can't help but think about all the people that they're going to interact with throughout their time as a student, and just how much in admissions, how much we rely on those other departments and those other support teams to help the student and help us. I mean, I think about how many times a day I have to reach out to some of those other departments for their expertise and their support. So we're all in this together. It's a collective team, even though not everybody works directly with students to talk with students directly. We all have our hands in it.
Yeah.
It's super critical.
Yeah, I definitely want to get to that. Those who don't directly work with students. I want to talk about that a little bit, especially leaders. But you said that you think retention begins before the admissions step, and this. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think because there is so much collaboration that's necessary, so much the partnership that the different teams have with each other, you have to have a layer of a lot of trust.
Yeah.
You have to know people's names, or that communication element has to be there.
Yeah.
All of that, I think, is just so critical. And if that isn't in place first, and I think if people don't see the value in what they do, because really, even if they don't work with students directly, and those who work with students, there is so much value in what they do. Even if, we talked before about the person who's just entering data into spreadsheets, that role is super important.
Sure. Yeah.
Top to bottom, the leadership that's involved, those who are on the academic side, rolling out programs and, providing that academic type experience, all the way to the front lines where you're helping students through that oftentimes really confusing and overwhelming enrollment process and financial aid and all of that. Everybody is just so critical to that journey.
When I think I know what you're saying, so I'm going to restate it to make sure I'm not making a leap. But when I hear what you're saying through this idea of the human experience, because that's what we're talking through. That's what this podcast is about: leading humanity, leading Adam. The Hebrew word for humanity. And when I hear what you're saying, is it begins long before the interaction of admissions to the student, because there's a community.
Absolutely.
First, that your relationships across departmental lines are just as important to retention as the conversations or the interactions directly with students, whether that's admissions or student support. Absolutely. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is so interesting to hear. And you had mentioned being able to mention someone by name. Those are little indicators to the student on the receiving end of that phone call that people there. Right. You are their connection to a network. We from the human experience standpoint, one of those elements is belonging. And the way that we measure belonging is in two part, is community, and then the belief that there's a future, right? The confidence that there's a future within an individual. But the community part's what we're talking about right now. And you're saying that element is present for retention long before the student enters their first conversation with someone in admissions.
Absolutely. It's like the chicken and the egg scenario. It's, it's hard to do what I do. It's hard to do that admissions role without the others in place. I'm definitely not a financial aid expert by any means.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. I rely heavily on that team there. I trust that they are the experts. I admire what they do and all the detail and all of the changes that happen. And I fully respect that role. So I'm excited when I get to talk with students and I can say, hey, there's, I know there's a financial aid office that can help these sort of deeper level questions, that they might have, and just know that I can pass them off to, whoever, or connect them with that team, and they're going to get the same level of service that I'm able to provide. On the admissions side.
Yeah, you mentioned the financial aid team, and I think we'd be remiss to not give a shout out to our financial aid folks.
There's a reason why I keep mentioning that team. Yeah,
I also think we would get some negative reviews if we don't pause to say, students, if you're a student and you're listening to this, financial aid is not a gift. It is a loan. You will have to pay it back 6 months after you finish, withdraw, or drop out.
Not just for money.
I so many times talking to financial aid, and that's one of the things, how do we got to communicate better to the student? This is not free money.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's a tool that can help a student make something that seems very impossible possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're talking about retention today, but maybe to pause to throw out another unsung hero of retention. And I think it's our course design folks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so much of the student experience goes into the UI, UX, and the way that those courses are set up are super important.
Yeah.
So, again, this isn't about calling out all the unsung heroes, because there's so many. That aren't seen. We think of the instructors and we think of the advisors and the mentors, but that's usually where we stop thinking about retention, and that's why I wanted to ask you, right, if it's connected, what does that look like? And you've said it looks like community. You get to be the first interaction with the student in so many ways. You get to be the representative of that community.
Yeah,
but that community has to exist for you to do that.
And I think, especially working with adult learners, I think there's a feeling when a student comes into an environment, they reach out to a school for the first time. And maybe it's been a long time since they've been in school. And the last time they were in school, it was high school. And that's just, you show up. You just keep showing up every day until they tell you that you're able to graduate. It's more of a passive learning. Well, now they're an adult. Now they've made this intentional decision. I'm going to take this next step. And oh my gosh, I am so scared. Yeah. There's a lot of fear that comes along with being an adult student. You kind of maybe don't have a full awareness of the academic rigor that you're getting into or the time commitment, but a little bit like, oh man, I know I'm going to have to sacrifice.
You've heard the horror stories. Yeah, that's what you mean.
Yeah, your family member, friend went through school. Man, I saw them take all this time to get through school, but I want that too. Right. So there's a maturity and an awareness there. And I think part of that fear is I'm afraid I'm going to step into this. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm afraid I'm going to do this alone.
Yeah.
And as an enrollment, and on the front lines, I tell a lot of my students, hey, I am your partner in this enrollment journey. I am going to be here with you all the way up until registration. So if you get stuck on anything, if you need help, I'm your person.
Yeah.
And so just, I can't tell you how many times, the student says, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Or they reach out to me 5 minutes later because they already, they already have a question about something. And that's what I want them to feel, like you're not alone in this. Like there are those of us that work on that side with the institution that we've been doing this for a lot of years. We work in it. We know it. We see it. We're here to help you and partner with you.
Is that a hard part of what you do? Is you build rapport, you start to establish a relationship in some ways, and a student exposes some of their anxieties and fears to you in that process, and that's a vulnerable moment. We talk about vulnerability and the human experience. That's a vulnerable moment for the student, and you share that with them, and then you come to this point by way of your role in the institution. you have to hand them off.
Yeah.
Is that difficult? Is that a part of your job that you don't love?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes there are students where I'm like, this is such a bittersweet moment for me, because some students you just get really attached to.
Yeah.
And if you work in admissions, we hear some stuff, that it's almost like a counseling role sometimes. And so much of it is just, sometimes I have to slow down in my conversation and be really present in that moment. Yeah. And just listen to the student, because it's shocking sometimes how quickly someone will reveal 5 minutes into a conversation something really major that has happened in their life, or really shared trauma, or just a difficult time that they've been through. And really just to listen to that student and like, wow, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Like, tell me what makes now a good time to think about going back to school? Like, you've been through all of that. Like, what makes now? And just really being with that student, I always try to listen for what does that student need right now to be successful at this, and to be able to have that confidence to take those next steps. And so, just really listening to that.
Yeah, it's continuity of care is so important in the string of retention. And again, from an organizational leadership perspective, continuity of that care is best threaded on a bed of relationship. Right. So if a student has shared something really important about their journey, having channels, and by channels, I mean relationship, because some of that stuff you don't want to put in the system. Right. But having channels of relationship to say to their mentor, their coach, their first instructor, whatever the case may be, just be aware. Yeah. Heads up, this is a part of the student's journey.
Yeah, I think that is best case scenario. And that doesn't, depending on, whether you work for an institution directly, or whether you're more of a partnership arrangement, there's a bit more limitation there.
Of course.
But yeah, I think that best case scenario is being able to really effectively communicate those types of things to whoever that handoff is, or knowing, at least knowing that, hey, this is the next step here, is you're going to have, I've been your person so far, but you're going to have another person.
Right.
And they're going to take really good care of you. So you're in good hands.
Yeah. So let's talk about, still from the admission side, you're talking with students on a regular basis. And, we've established that retention doesn't start when they start.
Right.
It starts before they even call.
Yeah.
With community. But then it kind of steps up, right? When you start talking with the student, retention initiatives, retention focus begins. And you're hearing from the student, they're expressing to you, why did you call? Clearly they're looking for an education. I would imagine. I know there's stories when they call and they think they called someone else. I know that exists,
right.
But they're calling for an education, but they're also saying, this is what I'm looking for. And I know you well enough to know you're hearing kind of between the lines.
Right.
What are you hearing from students when they're coming? Because that's a big part from the institution side, is if I can align what they're looking for with what we offer.
Absolutely.
Beyond the degree. The likelihood of them persisting and finishing is much, much higher. So what are you hearing that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think, a student will say, I'm just looking for a career change. A lot of students I talk to maybe feel stuck. They've been working jobs, maybe retail kind of jobs that they fell into, or construction. I feel like there's a lot, not to gender, but men, it's easy to fall into construction, manual type roles. And at some point your body doesn't feel so good anymore, as we talked about earlier. And so there becomes there's a moment in their life where they have a family now, they're different than they were. They didn't really know what they wanted to do, or maybe they got, there was a lot of pressure from parents or whatnot to go one route. And then here, a couple decades later, they're realizing, no, I think I really want to pursue a different passion, or pursue a passion. And so they're looking for just to generally maybe a better, a better set of circumstances, really something where they can pursue their passion. But within that, they're at a different point in their life now. Flexibility is one of those things that is super important with scheduling. They're a student, maybe third on the list. So they're going to be, attending as a student, but first they're a spouse or a parent, they're an employee. So they have to prioritize those types of things above being a student. So when it comes to, hey, life happens, as a parent, if your kid ends up in the hospital for some reason, so are you, they're sick if something happens. So I think just flexibility is a huge one.
Let me jump in here because I wanted to ask this question because I think there's something that from an education leadership standpoint that we can learn about the team that works with us, so the community that we have that we would call our employees. You can bet that what you're hearing from adult learners looking to pursue an education is the same things that a certain percentage, and I would say a larger percentage than you might anticipate, of your employees are feeling that same thing too. And the reason I want to pause and interrupt that is because if as education leaders, if they would take time to sit down with enrollment counselors like yourself, admissions folks, those at the front end, say, what are students looking for beyond education? And they hear things like flexibility. They hear things like purpose, meaning. You can translate that to a good portion of my team is feeling that same thing.
Absolutely.
And we can do that because that's a human thing. And that, again, we're committed to talking through hot topics for education. We're committed to sharing, hopefully, some entertaining stories along the way, but mostly some really pragmatic things. That we can take as ed leaders and go, I can take that to improve my human experience. Well, here's the one. Stop, go to the front line and ask, what are you hearing from students? And then make those assumptions of those human things that you can translate them, because as employees, flexibility is important. Autonomy is important. And the idea of purpose is their meaning. Like, those are really, really human things. And when we enhance those things as an institution, now that exists in our community. And when we invite a student or a learner into that community, they're going to be more likely to continue making progress.
Right.
Because they recognize that of the community they joined. So what else, though? Or what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I think the other big one is communication, and that's a super broad word, and I recognize that. So I think I could break that down, though, in from what I hear from students is help when it's needed. So being able to have a support system in place that they can turn to. I worked a long time in with online type programs. So that type of student, feels pretty good. We're all mostly used to using the internet now, right?
Most
and
of
being
us.
online, right? Some better than others, but it's like there's an understanding that, okay, I understand I'll be working mostly independently, but when I need help, when I need support, when that thing happens with my family and life happens, I need someone who I can talk to and reach out to, like a real person who understands what I'm going through.
Yeah, and so I want to relate this to a little bit of my journey. You had mentioned earlier, you talk to students and they've watched a family member or a friend or something go through, and the time that they invested in it. I remember when I started each time, honestly, because, I couldn't stop myself from just keep continuing to go
Forever.
I remember each time there being an excitement and an enthusiasm around, okay, you're starting.
Yeah.
And then within week 1, week 2, you know, my family, my friends, even those in my own house asking, hey, how's it going? And then, you know, you're 2 months in and you may get a few of those questions. By the time you're 6 months in, everybody's forgotten that this is a massive part of your world, and you start to feel isolated. And as a student, like, again, that's a very human thing. That process is going to happen every time, almost at the same time. And I think I use that because what you're saying is there needs to be a relationship, a support network, a community that when they reach out and they need something, that people are there to be responsive. But I think the other side of that is proactive interaction, knowing that by 6 to 9 months, that student is going to feel alone because everyone in their world quit asking how it's going. They forgot that, oh, you're doing a full-time education schedule and working and probably raising a family. And it's those moments that we can win on as an organization by being human and reaching out and just saying, how are you doing? You know, those are massive moments, and we can time those. So I think it's the opposite. It's a compliment.
Absolutely.
To what you're saying.
And I think we've all can relate to that. Just hearing you share that story, haven't we all experienced that in either our fitness, our grand fitness plans?
What?
Right.
No.
There's so much motivation at the beginning, and then very quickly.
Yeah.
Things start to fizzle out. If I didn't have, you know, I mentioned in an early episode, I do that Saturday morning ballet class. I started that a little over a year ago, and I've been consistently going every Saturday for over a year. And it's not because of my independent me just being motivated to do that.
You know, willing yourself.
No, it is because my friend texts me every Friday night and we're in it together. So having that in those days when I don't feel like going or it's hard to get up, I know she's in it with me, and you know, so that makes all the difference in the world. Yeah,
it does. And that's where our students are. You know, some of them, even if you're joining your program with a friend, you still at some point are having an individual experience, and we got to be attentive to that. And it, you know, as we're wrapping up here, we're looking forward to episode 10, and we're gonna kind of leap off of this some and talk about practically what does that mean for you as a leader, because I told you I wanted to circle back to that. Our organizational leaders from in an education context, our chancellors, our presidents, our VPs, all of those individuals play a massive role in retention. And I think we often skip over it. We don't recognize it. And we're going to leap off of this conversation into why is that the case. And of course, it goes back to what we've been talking about. You cannot offer that which you first don't possess.
Right.
You cannot pour from an empty cup. And so the leader, we're going to talk about practical ways that they can build community and that they can ensure purpose and those elements for their team, because that's what the students are really seeking after along the journey of their education.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get into that in episode 10. So I've enjoyed hearing the front end side from a retention perspective, and I so appreciate, Erika, who you are and what you've done in your career. And there's so many people in admissions who have that same heart, that same passion. And those on the support side can forget that sometimes because we think it's all about the numbers for those people, and it's not. It really is about helping students connect. So thank you for what you do. Yeah, well, thank you it's been great to just be able to talk about it. And for all the admissions, anyone who works in admissions out there, I know whenever you're listening to this, it might not be fall, but you know, what you do is so important, and it is hard to
remember that every day when you're in the trenches and processes and things change all the time and there are those obstacles to overcome, but what you do is so important. So thank you for all that you do and for the support teams that work with students every day. It's a gift.
It's a gift. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Episode 9 in the books.
Here we go. It's a wrap.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us here at the Leading Adam podcast. We hope you found inspiration and hope to see you again next time. Leave us a comment on YouTube, or if you have an idea for a future episode, let us know that too. You can connect with us at 240solutions.com. Thanks, and we hope to see you again next time.